Oh, and now, of course, we're live streaming. Looks like just started. Okay, so, all right, we are now live streaming, and hello, I'm Christina Dillabo, Director of Communications for the Desert Southwest Conference. This is Tuesday Talks, a weekly gathering with local church communicators, pastors, the office, church office staff, and anybody else that wants to get in the know about communications, what's coming up from the Desert Southwest Conference, from the district, and all sorts of tips and tricks from your local church people that are doing communications. So staff my main focus was just to talk about Zoom, and I have a staff, a Zoom staffer, Abby. She's our products coordinator. No, she's so we've got two account specialists for our Zoom account at the Desert Southwest Conference. One person we talked to about pricing and new products and all that. The other person, Abby, we talked to about the new products and existing products. Abby will let me know every now and then, hey, did you know that, you know, the Zoom stuff that you've had for all this time now also includes whatever. Did you know how to use, maybe you guys have heard of things like Whiteboard, but maybe you haven't heard about things like Backstage. So last week I had my meeting with Abby and our pricing account person, and I found out that there's a whole bunch of stuff that I know I wasn't using, and I thought you all might want to know. And so Abby's going to join us any second now to walk us through it. But in the meantime, I do want to clarify that although some of you may have Zoom accounts already for your church or for you personally, what you have might not accurately reflect what we have with the Desert Southwest Conference. Churches can purchase Zoom license through the Desert Southwest Conference, and now is the time to either buy your new license or renew your license. As I've mentioned before, the Desert Southwest Conference doesn't make a single penny off of any churches that purchase licenses. This is just something that we were able to negotiate discounted pricing, and then as time passed, we needed more products, more services, and so we're basically doing like a pass-through cost. But January is when the Desert Southwest Conference has to renew their account and let Zoom know we need so many licenses. So January is when, and we have to pay, I think, at the end of the month. So I try to get the churches to pay around that time frame as well. And that's why I can't really offer a discount mid-year or even in September or November, because we still would have had to pay the full cost. But it's still so much cheaper just by buying it through the Desert Southwest Conference than it is through Zoom directly or just about any other discount that I've heard of. And so now I see that Abby is here with us, and Abby, like I said, she is our, Abby, can you tell us your exact title? I know you're our products person, but I don't know what exactly the title is. Welcome.
Hey everyone, good morning. My name is Abby and I'm a customer success manager here in Zoom. Christina actually invited me to do a quick talk today. I'll basically be showing you some quick updates about the new releases from Zoom. So can I go ahead and do the presentation, Christina? Okay, perfect.
Go right ahead. Thanks, Abby.
All right, let me go ahead and share my screen. Just give me 1 second. All right. Can you all see my screen? Perfect. Again, thank you everyone for having me today. So this is just going to be a short talk that I'll be having. It's just going to take us 10 to 15 minutes of our time. So first off, Christina was actually interested with the updates that I've shown her last meeting that we have. So first update that I'll be sharing you would be the immersive scenes. So these are the items that I'll be sharing today. First is the immersive scenes. Then we have the session branding for webinars. For those of you that are doing webinars, we have a lot of items that are just released this past few quarters. And we also have Backstage for Webinar, translated caption. If some of you are doing presentations in other countries, they have the capability of doing the automatic translation. And some of the resources and support that we have available. So first on the list is the immersive scenes. So if you take a look at this beautiful photo here, this is what you can actually do. This is something that you have to turn on in the back end before you'll be able to use it and activate it. So the advantages of this is it makes it more fun to look at, and this is how you're gonna activate it. So on your Zoom meeting, you have to click on this button here at the top right, View, and click on Immersive. Then after that, these are the backgrounds or backdrop that you can choose from. And you can see there are numbers available. If you see 5, this means you can only do up to 5 participants. And the maximum for this is 25 participants. So it's gonna look like this one for 5 participants. So it's just a virtual setup, like a classroom setup, wherein you can move around and play around with the participants of that meeting. Okay. Then next on the list is slide control. No more next slide, please. So this is available in Zoom meetings. For example, you are in a collaborative session and someone is doing the presentation for you and you are doing the talking. So instead of saying next slide, please, you have the option to move around the slides by clicking on the arrow right or arrow left button. So this has to be activated in the back end, and I'll send the links that you can follow to Christina, and she can forward these links to you. Okay, and next is the webinar setting, which we call session branding. So the advantage of this one, especially for those who are doing webinars, you can customize the background of your screen. You can upload image. So the first is uploading a wallpaper. At the backdrop or the background of the participant or the panelist, your guest speaker, you can change the background. When they joined in the webinar, their background is already set. So that's something that you can do in the back end. Same goes with the actual session branding, this part right here, the blue one. You can upload a background image, and there's a limit to this one. There's specific like megabyte size allowable limit. I'll send that over to Christina because I'm not really particularly sure about the limits, but there's a limit on the size of the image that you're going to upload. Same goes with the name tags. You can actually put a name tag for that specific participant, like this one. You can label or you can put the title of that participant. Okay, so that is what we call the session branding. And we have a lot of available resources. Let me just copy this one. Let me put this on chat. You can save this link. So those are guides and instructions on how to do the session branding. Okay. Next on the list is Backstage for Webinars. So again, for those that are conducting webinars, this is one of the biggest release that we have. The advantage of this specific feature is you can interact with each other even if you are in a live webinar. So say you are in a live webinar right now and you wish to pull out all the panelists, all the guest speaker, you can put them all in the backstage and you can do a quick discussion while the webinar is ongoing. So to do that, when you start a webinar, you click on Start Backstage first. So you get to pull up all your attendees, your panelists, your guest speaker. You can meet with each other in the backstage before doing the actual webinar. So same with when you're starting a webinar. So you just click on Start Backstage. And this is how it's going to look like. You are in the backstage currently. And you'll see at the bottom part or bottom right corner, you have the webinar icon. When you click on webinar, you're now going to the actual webinar. Now, there's also a button that says backstage. So you go back to the backstage. So this is how it's gonna look like. This one. So this is the actual webinar. And when you click on go to backstage, you're gonna go back to the backstage, and you can also like pull in your attendees or panelists to the backstage. So this is how it looks like. Okay, so we have a test panelist on the sample. You click on the three dots or the more button, click on move to backstage. So this way, you get to do a conversation to the panelist, to your guest speaker, before doing the actual live webinar. And what your attendees will see would be this one. The host will be right back. Okay. So this means, I believe this was one of the questions, Christina, last week. You can actually leave the webinar without having host in that live webinar. You can all pull out all the panelists to the backstage if you need to do a quick discussion. So this is what your attendees will see. The host will be right back. Okay. And when you're ready to go back to the live webinar, this is what you're gonna see. Click to go to webinar, and you'll be back to the webinar, and you can move your attendees or your panelists to the live webinar itself. It's very easy to play around this one. So you can do a test with your team if you want to play around with this one. Next on the list is translated caption. Again, as mentioned earlier, if you're doing like meetings, webinars to other countries, or if you have participants from other countries, such as this countries on the list or languages on the list, your attendees have the capability to turn this on if they want to do, or if they want to read a translation or like a caption that is already translated. So that's what we call translated caption. So these are the languages available. We have Chinese, Dutch, French, German, Italian, Japanese. So at this point, these are the only language available. You have Korean, Portuguese, Russian, and yeah, that's it. So maybe other languages are still in the works at this point. But yeah, these are the only languages that can be utilized at this point. Okay. All right, Learning Center. I want to recommend everyone to please go to our Zoom Learning Center. We have a lot of items that you can learn from. We have video tutorials, we have PDF guides or instruction materials that are available. So as long as you're logged in to your Zoom account, you should be able to access our Zoom Learning Center. We have videos available. You can register for live training, as you can see here, and these are all free. And if you want to like watch quick videos, just click on show me videos. Let's say you want to learn more about how to adjust your Zoom webinar setting. Just click on show me videos, type webinar. And it's going to give you like a list of videos available about webinars. And you can also register for our live trainings. Okay. So I'll send this over to you. Oh, sorry, I've already sent this to you, Christina. So feel free to forward this to your team. These are some of the helpful links that we have here in Zoom, and I want to recommend to access Zoom blog. This is where we normally post the latest product releases, product updates, upgrades that we have. So watch out for all the upcoming updates that we have, because we have a lot coming in the next few months. All right, that's actually it. Any questions from the team?
And Mike?
Yeah, I had just a couple of quick questions. The backstage product aspect is that feature kind of like a breakout room? Would it be? It's like a special case of a breakout room.
Yeah, I would say yes. Yeah, it's a breakout room in a webinar session, but in this case, it's just the panelist and the host that will be in that specific room before you go back to the live webinar.
Okay. And another question I had too is just in general, as a general approach to, for a case where a church is doing a Zoom session where they're showing a worship service, would it make more sense to approach that from a webinar type setup or from just a Zoom meeting setup?
Okay, that's actually a good question because normally when we distinguish webinar between Zoom meetings and Zoom webinar, there's a lot more collaboration that can be done in Zoom meetings compared to a Zoom webinar. So if you like the participants to actually be more engaged, like share more ideas, share their videos, you have to use Zoom meetings because in Zoom webinar, the participants cannot share their videos.
What's the advantage for like a worship service for Zoom webinar?
Well, normally, when you do, Christina, you could chime in anytime. If you do like Zoom worship via Zoom, do you want participants to share their videos as well and like do some talking? Do they also speak during the worship service?
Usually they don't.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things that I've noticed, for example, like in this presentation here, when you're sharing something, like if somebody wants to share a slide or something
Mm-hmm.
during a service, the speaker gets shrunk down, and I haven't figured out how to allow something between this minimal image of the speaker and then the big image of the slide or whatever, versus maybe change that aspect to maybe 50-50 on the screen or something like that. I don't know if the webinar has that capability or.
Well, unfortunately, there's a lot of limitations when you do webinars compared to Zoom meetings. But I would say Zoom webinars is going to be more secured, especially if you have some participants that are joining that are not part of your team, actually. Zoom webinars is going to be more secured for you. But if the participant needs to share their screen, to talk, like maybe do some sharing afterwards, they cannot do it in a webinar. They can only do it in a Zoom meetings. So if your focus is more on just sharing without getting feedback from the audience, then it's best to do the webinar.
Okay, and the last thing,
compared
if you
to
don't mind, I just on this range of things, is there a forum or a place that if we wanted to recommend new features or new capabilities, where would we send that recommendation?
Good question. I'll send the link over to Christina because we have what we call the feature request link. So I'll send that over to Christina.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, all right. Welcome.
Abby, I have a quick question on the session branding. Is that available only in a webinar, or can you do that in meetings as well?
Yeah, good question. This can only be done on Zoom meetings. They can only be done in Zoom webinars. But as an administrator, you have the option to pre-upload like selections of backgrounds. For example, let me go ahead and share my Zoom site. Okay, so here the administrator can pre-upload backgrounds. Let me show you this one. Okay, so as you can see here, there are some, you can see here it says uploaded by your administrator. So as a user, I still have the control over whatever background I want to use. But my administrators here in Zoom, they can pre-upload a background on my behalf. But in a Zoom webinar, you as administrator or host, you can already pre-upload or preset a specific background for their background during their webinar, during the specific webinar.
So
Does that make sense?
The one thing that I saw that I was curious about is I did not know you could do 2 name titles. Is that available to everybody, or was that just with the branding feature?
Yes, it's available for everyone. You have to access that in the settings. You have to turn that on. So that's the first item that you need to do. Let me check if I can show that to you. Because there's a lot of setting that needs to be turned on first. So if you go to your Zoom website, You go to the settings tab at the left side of your screen. First off will be the backstage, for example. So just Control F, type backstage. Okay, make sure it's toggled on. Now your question was with the name tags. So it has to be turned on first. I'm using a test account, so I'm not sure if all items here will be shown. But in here, when you create a webinar, let me try to create a webinar. Oh, it's not showing. I'm actually using a test site, so it's not showing up all the items here. But what I'll do is I'll send a link over to Christina, because we have a lot of settings and materials that are available online. It could serve as your guide on how to do it. But
Thank
you should be able to do it in the, on when you are creating a webinar, you should be able to pre-assign the name tags for your participants and attendees. I'll take note of this.
Thanks, Abby. I do want to take a quick moment just to remind everyone that that is one huge difference between getting a Zoom license on your own versus getting one through the conference. We include webinars, a webinar license with it for up to 500 people. So that's already baked into your license. And Abby, you can correct me, but I think that the only way to set up your webinar is to actually go into the zoom.us website. You don't,
Yes,
you can't do that through the app.
that's correct. Yes.
Okay, any other questions? No? Okay, well, thank you very much, Abby. Oh, you know what? I did
Thank
want
you.
to clarify one item. So you mentioned that during the backstage in a webinar, that the host would be gone as well. What if the host, is it possible for the host to keep sharing whatever on their screen, but maybe they moved the 4 or 5 other panelists into backstage and the participants still see somebody talking while the others are talking in backstage?
I actually tested that one out yesterday. So let's say your host is sharing their video and they went to the backstage. When they are already in the backstage, whatever they're sharing is going to be gone. It's so the person sharing the screen has to be in the live webinar itself. So if they have to go to the backstage, they need to appoint another person that can do a share screen, maybe a co-host. So that person can still continue sharing screens, sharing sounds, video, something like that.
Okay, that's very helpful. Thanks, Abby.
Okay.
And
right.
then, Michael, your item about webinar versus meetings for churches, if you ever did need to, let's say you had normally in-person worship service, you might ask someone, whether it's a lay leader or just an average person in the pew, come up to the podium and talk about bulletin announcements or a mission moment. So if you were running your worship service as a webinar, you could look at whoever the host is, could look at the list of the participants and switch them from attendee to panelists, and it moves them over, or turn on their microphone. I don't remember if you can actually turn on their video as well, but you can promote them. But for that person, it's important to let them know in advance that it's going to seem like they got kicked out and that they're joining back in. So just let them know, test it out with your team, and you'll see that that's possible. But then just remember afterwards to move them back as a participant, just because if they're not used to being a panelist, they might forget to mute themselves or turn their video off again. They might mess around with stuff, not realizing that, hey, everybody else is still seeing you. So just keep that in mind. And then vice versa, if you decide, well, we like to have little breakout meetings, or we like to have people talk and share their prayer concerns, and that really can only be, or can be done best because you want to be able to see people or hear them if we're doing a meeting. In the meeting mode, there's all sorts of ways to change your meeting so that it almost looks like a webinar by I don't remember the exact term, so maybe Abby, you can help me. And I'm sorry, I've got construction in my background, my backyard. I don't know if you can hear the drilling. Oh, good. See, Zoom is so great. It's quieting out my background. So there are things you can do to highlight someone, pin their video only so that everybody only sees that one person. There's that new, it's not new, but it's new-ish. There's the classroom mode, and what is the other one called? Like focus mode. I know you don't have slides about that, but are you able to just quickly glance over that, or maybe include that in the resources?
You mean pinning? So let me try to pin you, Christina. So this is how it looks like when you want to focus someone doing the talking, maybe. Yeah, so that's how you pin. You just click on the hover to that person's video, and you can see there's a 3 dot at the top right, and click on pin. Then you can unpin them afterwards. Yeah, let remove pin. There we go.
But that didn't affect our image at all, right?
Yes.
Well,
correct.
no, yeah, but if I was the host, so let's say, Michael, I'm gonna pin you. Does everybody see Michael as the big person on the screen now? No? Okay, then that's only gonna do it for my view, but I can change that in the up right-hand corner. Let's see, hide self-view, hide non-participants.
I guess it depends if the observer in their local environment sets the speaker version of view, right?
Yeah.
Sorry about that. The host can do it. Let's say Christina is the main host of this account or this Zoom meeting. When she pins someone, let's say she pins Michael, it's gonna apply to everyone, to everyone's view. There we go.
So what happened this time, though, I remember it's in settings that it's important to make sure that your settings are where your participants or other meeting participants follow the host's view. So whatever I do, you guys will have to see it. When I didn't have that setting on, so when I pinned you, Michael, nobody else saw that except for myself. I'll have to go in and see where that is. However, when I select Spotlight for everyone, then this changed it for everyone. And then you just have to, there's a little spot where I can just click on Michael's picture to say remove Spotlight.
I see. So because in my local environment, I have the gallery view selected. So that's why I didn't see a difference. But if I switched my view to speaker, then I would see the difference, right?
Maybe, but leave it on gallery view for now.
Okay.
And then
So Christina, if there were more people than would show up on my screen to see, if I pin someone, even if I'm in, it will move them. I can move them so that they're pinned for me. And you can also rearrange people all over the place. If you can move people in different positions. So if you have 4 people that are doing all the talking, you could put those 4 on the top and everybody else below. And it helps to follow. If you want to stay in gallery view, you can do a lot of things to rearrange people to make it easier to follow them.
And I'll tell you one great application for that is when you do, when you're going to say something and then ask somebody else to introduce themselves, like taking turns, let's say, you can start moving people in order from who already spoke so that it's easy for you to see who goes, who needs to go next. But all that rearranging, you'll only see for yourself. You're not changing it for anybody else. All right. Any other questions or comments, something to share about Zoom? Go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, Christina, my question is, when we are doing a Zoom service, now, like right now, I've got you're the big picture, and then the other, the gallery is over here on the right-hand side of the screen. During the whole worship service, that gallery is over on the right-hand side of the screen. Is there a way to minimize that? Can I just do, what did I just do? I'm not sure what I just did. I think I hit the 1 bar.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that gets rid of it, doesn't it?
It does just for you, Bob. It's not going to change it for anybody else that's watching and joining and see in the gallery. That's
Okay.
one nice bonus about the webinar view, is that nobody's going to see all that bar of other people.
Yeah, and I don't mind, people seeing other folks. My concern is that it that big block of pictures kind of takes away from the worship service.
So then you're probably running your worship service as a meeting.
Correct.
And so everybody would see that. I think that you can set up, when you first create your meeting for a worship service, if you create it on the Zoom.us website, you can set it up so that all of your participants have their video off and their microphone muted. And then you can also select to only show people who have their video turned on. I think that'll fix what you're talking about, and it'll look a little bit like a webinar. But I don't remember if there's a setting to allow participants to unmute themselves or to turn their own video on. I don't remember about that.
Yeah, especially like during the prayer time, I ask the folks that are on Zoom, because we do both virtual and in person. And I asked the people on Zoom, do you have any prayer requests, anything, any updates for us? And so that's the opportunity for them to share.
Okay, so give that a try. I think as you heard or learned today, there's a lot of features in Zoom that are already available, whether you're using a Desert Southwest Conference license or not. It makes sense to test stuff out, try it out. Don't do it during worship maybe, but you could plan just an informal gathering with some of your friends or your church leadership and, schedule a webinar, schedule a meeting and try the different settings, keep notes about what you liked or didn't like about the others, and then try almost like an official, maybe a church meeting with your leadership after you've done your little test sessions, just to give you that familiarity and comfort of, okay, we ran it successfully the way we want it to work for worship. And it could just be the starter devotional, maybe, for your meeting, if you do meetings with devotionals in the beginning. So give that a try, and then maybe you could switch over for worship. Okay, thank you again, Abby. Unless there's anything else from anybody, I think you are safe to go. I know she's going to send me her, she already sent me slides that she showed today, and there was a couple other things that she's going to send me as well. I'm going to pass that right along to all of you in my follow-up notes later today.
Yeah.
All right,
Thanks,
you, Abby.
everyone.
Bye.
Thanks for having
Thank
me.
you.
Bye.
Thank you, Abby.
Isn't she so nice? The people at Zoom are super nice. So with that in mind, if something else comes up that you have a question about, or you start wondering, well, can we do this? Besides trying it out on your own, of course, you can send me an email or send me a request for it. What do you recommend for this type of situation? Because we've done a lot of different things, whether it's for annual conference or online retreats that we've run. Carla has done the UMW, well, it was UMW, now it's United Women in Faith. The annual meeting or annual session?
Annual celebration. And we've run it as a webinar, and we've run it as a meeting for different purposes.
Yeah, so there you go. And of course, among the different churches, people are doing different things for for worship, running it different ways. So if you ask your questions, I could put it out there in a Tuesday talk and see what other churches respond with. So thank you, everybody, for joining me. That's all I had today. Oh, go ahead, Carla.
So I remember reading from last week that the account was going to be sent out, or the billing was going to be sent out. And has it been done?
No,
because I didn't receive it. I didn't receive it for United Women in Faith, and that's what I wanted to make sure that I hadn't missed it.
No, I'm so glad you mentioned that. So I am going to send it out. I hope to get that done today. I'm just a little bit behind on the stuff to do, but yes, I that is coming. Thanks for the reminder. Anything else from anybody?
So that billing comes to everybody that has a license for the conference?
Yes, but I'm also going to go ahead and send kind of more of a generic invitation to all churches, to the finance chairs that I have and all pastors, so that they're aware that now's the time to renew, and that the email addresses that I have listed on the Zoom licenses are going to get a reminder email that now's the time to renew. And that generic one also lets them know same thing about where to pay, how much it is, and what comes with it. So that way, whether it's the finance person or the actual account user, whoever it is that's paying for it, they'll get the information, they'll pay for it. And if your church isn't already getting their license through the Desert Southwest Conference, there's the opportunity to go ahead and purchase 1, 2, 5 licenses, whatever that your church needs. Alrighty, then Sherry, I will send you a link to join me